Shaken, but never stirred. This is the Greg Struss Show, coming to you almost live and direct here from Cable Television City in the west side of Chicago, GS, and I am glad that you're joining us for what will hopefully be another informative and entertaining program. Now, a lot is to be talked about because yours truly just celebrated another milestone. I turned 51. I don't know now if I'm 51 years young or 51 years old. I guess it depends on whether or not you look at the glass as being half empty or half full. And I made some steps career-wise that I would like to talk about tonight on the show and change, as we always do, as our program talks a lot about things that are associated with addiction and recovery. And what we're seeing today are things that people can benefit from by working some kind of a program, okay? So what is our program in life? It also usually involves having stability, right? And having a little bit of structure. And I'll be honest with you, I think I've been lacking in some of those areas, and it's showing. Because why? I'm still working a job that, what? Gets me by. And I've never subscribed to the way of thinking that once somebody is 50 years old or older that they're no longer employable, and especially today, because today's workers are not the same as people who are older and can do a lot of different things and have been through certain things in their life experience. So I don't buy that, and I want to talk a little bit about that as well tonight. So we are still hearing about Jussie Smollett. Some 4 shows later, I think, we've been talking about this. We celebrated a milestone of 100 shows, also talked about that as well. Now, Lori Lightfoot is becoming the mayor of Chicago. She'll be the first black, female, openly gay, let's get them all out of the way, mayor. And I'm happy because she sounds like she has a great plan for the city in bringing people together and putting an end to some of the nonsense. Now, one of the things that I don't believe her or side with her on is that most people do not think about the Jussie Smollett case. And I think she's gonna, if she walks in to her first days on the job with that attitude, I think she's gonna hear a little bit of a blowback, because I think that this is on a lot of people's minds in the city and in the nation, because of the crime that was involved and the fact that there was no accountability at the county court level and on that personal level with Jussie Smollett, who seems to be, I say, shatting on everybody that has been in the wake. Robin Roberts, Don Lemon, the people of Empire, who have now written a letter to Disney, Fox, stating why they believe innocent Jussie should come back to the show, even though viewers have flocked away. Now, I think that when actors and actresses support a coworker, yeah, that's okay. But in this case, considering the crime that was committed, there is no innocence in here. People can claim that they're innocent from the public relations end, when in fact, they are not, because people who are arrested and charged and indicted and give up, and that are free on bond and then give that bond up, forfeit it, for a deal that's sealed, you're not really innocent. So let's be truthful about that. Then some other things come out that Jussie's activism work really was not. Or how he spent time, telling some people in a prison program that he would make them stars or listen to their music or help them out, then not follow up, kind of comes out in the wash as well. So I don't think things are, everything that this guy has talked about has basically been a lie. His family has enabled him. The stars of that show have enabled him. The cast and crew have enabled him. And now they're putting on a public front that Fox will renew us because of his innocence, or they will bring him back because we want him back. To me, I think Fox should just cancel the show and be done with it, because it's not trending well. Supposedly, with this big wedding that went on between the first 2 openly gay black people getting married on TV, even though a live marriage took place on the Donahue program between a white and black man in 1991. Let's forget that, because that really was a first. So it's trending downward, and I am just waiting for Disney Fox to cancel this program and put everybody out of their misery. Because you know what? When people make a statement like this, I don't think any of them will work again. Or have high-profile jobs again. When you start involving yourself in such a hotly debated topic, you start to insult your viewers and your viewership. And I have a feeling that there will be a sponsor boycott of some kind, as they should. Because you know what? I don't agree with it. And I hope they cancel that show, because it needs to be canceled. I think people need to be put in their place when they speak out of turn and insult half of America. But that's just me, and what do I know? And I'm just giving an opinion. Anyway, we got lots of opinions and facts, hopefully, on tonight's program. Hopefully I didn't alienate you from listening. We're not just going to be talking about this stuff. We're going to be talking about a lot of things as it relates to addiction and recovery and problem solving and coming up with a solution on tonight's Greg Struss Show. I'm Greg Struss. This is the Greg Struss Show. How many times can we say it? Reinventing community television here from the west side of Chicago. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be back in just a moment. Okay. I passed a passive progressive who was talking on their government cell phone. But anyway.
He's laughing at his own jokes, folks. He's got to first get them out. He's a good boy.
Welcome back to the Greg Struss Show. I'm Greg Struss. And you can reach us here at gstrussman@gmail.com, and I love hearing from you. If you have any questions or comments about the show and what we're doing here, or some critiques about some of the things that I talk about, I certainly love to hear from you at gstrussman@gmail.com. We were talking before the break about turning 51. It's just another year, that's all it is. So now that I'm into my second year of my 50s, I'm trying to continue with the change, getting out of what I'm doing, and you would laugh at what I'm doing. I won't share what I'm doing, but I have to work a job like everybody else. And you know what? I have a college education. I also am certified alcohol drug counselor. So I renew those credentials every 2 years. I renewed them, and I now have to renew them again. So every 2 years I have to take like 40 hours, 30 or 40 hours worth of classes. So I can do that online or go to various functions and earn those credits that way. And keep up to date on what's going on in counseling for addiction and recovery. Now, it was, when I was doing it, I did this for probably about 4 or 5 years on different levels, and then went to school and became certified. It is, and I was working in a methadone clinic. Now, what methadone is, it's basically a synthetic opiate. So it's man-made, and it's a medication that replaces people that are on heroin and have major addiction to opiates. So what it does, it's a longer lasting substance that someone comes in, they speak with a counselor, they get on the program. Many people never leave the program and continue using, but they're using less of their illegal substance. So what happens is that when people come into a clinic, they earn a code. So when you start out, it's 6 days. You come into the clinic 6 days for whatever your measurement of the medication is. It comes in a wafer form or it comes in a liquid form. Now, I worked in a new clinic for somebody that lost a previous clinic due to unethical business practices and behavior. Now, when I entered into this clinic and I was working there, my supervisor, who was my teacher at the time. So he granted me a position, gave me a position because he saw promise in me. And I had other skill sets to bring to this business. I knew a lot about sales and marketing and how to collect and all the things that I did in various jobs in the past. I worked as a temp for a while where I learned collections and did things like that. I often cut people a break because I felt bad for them, so I really wasn't a good temp for that position. So I'll tell on myself a little bit. I was more for the customer than I was for the agents, more for the business of the bank. But I wasn't working for the bank, and I don't know, I just felt badly for people. So let's just say I didn't cut it as a collector. So I brought that to that job, and I did it very well. And I also was able to type 60 words a minute, do reports, put out little fires, personality conflicts, etc. It consumed me. I enjoyed it. And I got to a point of where things were getting to be just a little too shady at this place that I was working for. So in essence, was I really being unethical because I knew about the things that were going on? And I would have conversations. I loved my boss, even though he was one of the most shady people I think I had ever worked for. As long as it wasn't creeping into my work and the job that I was doing as a counselor, I didn't feel that I was being unethical. But let's just face it, things started getting to be a little more than sketchy. So for example, the Cook County Police came in one day unmarked and wanted to talk to the owner. We couldn't figure out why. I went out in the front as usual and I said, "May I help you, officer?" "Yeah, I'm here to see the owner of this place." I said, "Is it something I can help you with?" He said, "No." I said, "Okay." So the person went next door to where the owner was and came back and said, "He's not here." And he says, "You're full of it." Now, I didn't do this. She did, because she was told by the boss that he wasn't there. So county went in to serve him. We later found out he wasn't paying his rent. Then all of a sudden we come back in, walk out one day, at the end of the day, which was about 11:30 in the morning, because we opened up at like 6 in the morning, had to be there at 5:15 in the morning, and discover that the electric bill wasn't paid. And so I get on the horn with him, I call him, I said, "By the way, the electric company's here, they're gonna give you 3 days to pay it, otherwise they're shutting it off at the pole." So about 3 weeks later, I walk in on a Friday, and all of a sudden I go to put the temperature on. I notice the boss is there. He's never there. He's dressed up. He says, "I was here all night." He said, "Because we had a problem with the power." So the place was on a generator all weekend. He owed like $5,000 in an electric bill that had never been paid. And then all of a sudden we have, county coming in. They want to evict it because he hadn't paid rent in over a year. Now, how does that happen? And yet I stayed and trying to figure out a solution for this, because we were serving people in need of help. Well, then the nurse doesn't come in. And all of a sudden, somebody else is back there doing things that they're not supposed to. Now, at this point, I had every right to walk out of the place, because we are beyond being unethical and now in an illegal situation. So, being the good soldier that I am, I overlooked some things because we were still serving people. Now, if the clinic had closed, these people would not be served, and they'd be on the street committing crime for their habit. Now, am I admitting that I committed a crime? No. I don't feel that I committed a crime because I was not the person that was doing these things. Now, in having a sense that something was inappropriate, we still had to serve our clients. So you know what I did? I talked with my supervisor about it. Then I talked to the doctor about it. And I said, "I think that this is what's going on." And they would say, "You know what? He's going to get what's coming to him. It's really not in our area." Now get this, it's really not in our area, but I'd be saying, "Well, isn't this kind of unethical?" I don't want to be taken out of this place in like handcuffs. I'm not going to jail because I'm helping somebody and I'm being, am I doing something illegal by being here because I know what's going on or sense what's going on? And they said no. So they kind of talked me down off that ladder, and I stayed a few more months. And then finally something happened that I had to leave. And I would have went back a couple months later, but he decided to play games with what he was going to pay me. So I was like, yeah, I just don't think this is going to work out. So I left the field based on this experience and being exhausted because it was a lot, all for not a lot of money and no benefits. So in my heart of hearts, and it was funny, that boss said to me, "What are you doing here as a counselor when you belong on television?" So I submitted my things to a station recently, just a letter, and I said I'd follow up with some more materials. I've never done news other than in high school. And you know, people saying you have a presence and you look good and you sound good and you talk about good things and you have good content and you've done this before, why wouldn't a station hire you? And so now I'm waiting to hear what's next and getting to feel a little defeated, even though it hasn't been a lot of time and I haven't followed up yet. Because I just, you know, every time I've ever been excited about something, it never really works out. And I got to break myself of that. Because my time is now. It needs to be now. It is now. Now, did you notice when I said it needs to be now? I can't continue doing what I'm doing, you know, in my being out of my field and out of my education. I can't use school as an excuse because I've already gone to school. And I know what I want. I'd love to be on CBS right now, CBS 2 in Chicago. Not because I have a big ego, but because this is my trade. You know, I've been talking to a friend of mine who's going to be retiring from police work. And I said, what do you want? You know, I'm into legacy. I'm into legacy because she sacrificed everything in her personal life to do this. She planned on doing this all of her life. And it really didn't turn out the way she thought it would turn out. And there were times she wanted to leave it. There were times she was going to finish her PhD. And then as she came up to presenting her dissertation, I talked about this in the past, she said she had enough. She was just so burned out. Things happened on that job. She lost a dear friend. She lost a couple people that she knew in the line of duty who had been shot and killed or killed in a car accident. And then having to finish all this stuff, and then, you know, dealing with those emotions from what her father told her as a child. Yeah, all this stuff comes back at the weirdest time. And I'll never forget. I will never forget. It was 2005. I was living in California or just coming back from there. And she said, you know, we bought our dream house and we had a campfire in the prairie or the field or whatever it is that they have in the acreage. And I burned all of my paperwork. And I decided, I don't want to do this. I said, but hear me out with this. I said, it sounds like you made up your mind. It's your decision. It's your life. But all you had to do was present this. And you had your PhD. I said, all the driving you did, everything else, and what it cost you, you have your PhD. I don't, you know, in an expletive, give Greg, because you know what? I realized that it was a lie. I did it for the wrong reason. I realize I have a career right now that pays me more than ever. And you know what? I may not like it. Where am I going to go and make this money for the inconvenience for 8 hours a day? And I'm at the point of where I have seniority that if I want to call off sick for a month, I could take a month off. She said, I never do that. She still feels guilty when she calls off and somebody gets stuck with it. She tries not to stick people with it. But that's how she is. That's how people are. Some people are. Not everybody. There's a handful of us that are like that. But I have given too much to employers that don't care. And it's really not in a field that has anything remotely with what I do. It's a dead-end job. And it's funny how we kind of get sequestered into doing things because it's convenient and moving out of that. And that's what I want to discuss in this next segment. How do I move beyond what I'm doing today based on what I've been doing, right? Just because I've been doing it doesn't mean I have to do it forever. And getting out of that comfort zone. And I'll tell you what, the money's not what it used to be because things have changed. Applications have replaced things. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And I appreciate you tuning in to the Greg Struss Show, and we'll be back in just a moment. This is the Greg Struss Show. I'm Greg Struss. Thank you for tuning in. We were talking before the break about jobs, a dead-end job or dead-end career field and how we have to go back to school. I went back to school to become a counselor. And I did it, I was excited about it, and then I realized the money I'm making for the effort I'm putting through and how exhausted I was and the fact that I had to work another job, a dead-end job that I had continued working in addition to counseling. And I'm just thinking about what is the quality of life? And then you should take a look at people when you say, you really can't make a living as a counselor if you want to have anything. And people are, right? They're stressed out, tired, overworked, and do it because it's a calling. It's God's work, in a sense, when you're helping people. But I always said this, and people would just look at me, I said, but God's not paying my bills. God's not giving me a quality of life that is even remotely near where I want it. I'm not talking about driving a brand new Benz or doing things like that. I'm talking about, moving up in the world a little bit when one moves into a career type position. So I realized that, maybe counseling is not the career I should be in. I want to be in communications. I want to be in television. Television has changed. And I have a lot of ideas. And I've done it. So what does it take to get in the door? That's all I'm asking for, people. What does it take? So I'm figuring that out and picking up the phone and talking to people. That's what it takes. And writing a letter or, just doing things like that, just to get back into being around that circle. Because once I'm moving and I'm around people that are doing it, it makes it much easier for me to do it. So anyway, that's what's next for me. And don't ever buy into that just because we're 50 or over 40 that employers don't want us anymore. That's false. Because if you take a look at the 20-year-olds today, you're not getting it. The 30-year-olds, you're not getting it. Closer to 40, 45, you're going to get a committed employee, somebody that's lived through life, is a little more mature, and understands the responsibility to a employer, a job, and a career. It's not to say that people that are younger don't, but they just don't have the maturity. And today's 20-year-old, I think, is far different than the 20-year-old when I was 20. And let's face it, 20 is a fun age. I wish I could be 20 again, all over again. But that, I was getting into a conversation with someone, actually a disagreement with someone at my place of work. And it got a little out of hand. And somebody comes in the back, a young lady who was about 20. And she comes back and inserts herself, and I was rather curt, short, and I said, don't involve yourself in something that's none of your business. Because you know what, in certain fields, everybody seems to think that, it's kind of like high school or grade school where everybody's in your business. And I put an end to that. And I said, you know what, don't get involved in something. She looks at me, uses an expletive, and calls me an effing B. And I turned around, I looked at her, and I said, why don't you learn a vocabulary, number one, and no, and gave it back to her. And I didn't feel good about that. I really didn't. But I set her in her place because she was disrespectful and she interfered in something that was none of her business. And I don't think she had ever been called on it. I don't think her parents probably ever called her on it. And nobody talked to me about it because I would have been talking to them about it. I'm at the point in my life where I'm not putting up with nonsense. That's employers that don't want to follow the law. Okay, there are boards of labor for that. Do you know how many places I've worked where the people have just broken the law? They're not paying people. They're threatening them with their jobs if they don't work a holiday. And they get away with it because people think that this is the only place I can work. Well, you know what? Greg's taken some action now with people who want to do that stuff. In the past, I would just drop hints all the time and then they kind of leave you alone because you're not somebody they want to F with. And now it's just so outright ridiculous that I think, when you're charging employees for mistakes and you're getting away with it and you're okay with it, it doesn't matter what your law is. It's what the law is. You can't do those things. So I think you need to be accountable for it. And I got to get out of my comfort zone and I'm going to do something about it. And, oh well. So am I difficult because you're breaking the law? And you're abusing people? Shouldn't you be fined for that? Shouldn't you be taught a lesson for that? I think so. Maybe that's wrong. I don't know. But we'll find out about it. And it's uncomfortable, but I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to do something for me, and I'm going to do something for the people that work there. So I don't think I'm going to be there much longer, by the way, anyway. So that aside, it's just a moment, and I'm ready to move on from it. And I'd really like to work at a station in Chicago. I went to school here. People always said, oh, you don't get to start in Chicago. Well, I think when you live other places and you do TV in other places, regardless of whatever level it's in, you still have a skill set. And I look at people on TV and I'm like, I can do it just as good as you. I can read a teleprompter just as good as you, and I'm committed to it. So when we were talking about legacy, and we're going to wrap this up, what I said to my friend was, what do you want your legacy to be? And she says, there you go, you're stuck on legacy. She says, guys leave here with their badges and they're done, and everybody forgets about them. I said, yeah, but, and what I'm explaining in it, because we're pen pals, is that, yeah, but that was just a job to them. It wasn't their career. They didn't give up having kids for their job, for their job. They came in, they worked all the overtime. They didn't go out to better themselves in their field like you did, advance their educational level, advance up the rank and file. No, it has to amount for something. 27 years has to amount for something. And I don't know, maybe because I haven't been there, but I know that my legacy in the shows that I've done in the past, even though I wasn't paid a lot of money to do them, if any, I know that the people that worked with me went on. I see my legacy with them. I never talk about it. They went on. They worked with us. They worked with me. They got the experience and the self-esteem to go out and sell themselves, to direct the news, to go work at Discover or go wherever else. Now, I don't take credit for that. I don't. But I know that somehow I served as a conduit to their experience. And, in giving them an opportunity, they helped me while they helped themselves. And now I need someone to be my conduit to help me while I help myself. And let's face it, those on-air jobs don't just go to anybody. Sometimes it looks like it goes to somebody, but it's an old saying that you either needed to have a rabbi in the business, somebody that supported you. It doesn't mean that they were Jewish. More oftentimes they were, because there's a lot of Jewish people in the entertainment field. Doesn't mean that they're associated with the synagogue. It just was a saying. It's not disrespectful. Somebody that sponsored you, somebody that saw promise in you and said, okay, and guided you. I haven't had anybody like that in years. And maybe I wasn't real open to it. At a point in my life, I was. I had people. And then as I got into other things, left Chicago, I lost touch with those folks. And I wish they were still in my life. I still wish I had people like that. And I think I'm going to be meeting some folks like that. I kind of sense that now is the time. Now, earlier I said, need? No, but it's feeling that now is the time. Something is going to break for me. And I can't wait to tell you about it. Anyway, if you have something happening in your life, please drop me a line at gstrussman@gmail.com. I'd love to talk to you about it. And of course, we're here every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock, here on Channel 19 in the western suburbs of Chicago, as well as on youtube.com. Greg Struss, thank you for watching. We'll see you again next time. Goodbye, everybody.